Welcome back, everyone. Today we are talking about something that's reshaping logistics in real time, i.e., dashboards and analytic platforms for carrier operations. Joining me is Mirko Sanatori, an expert in supply chain transformation. Mirko, it's always a pleasure to have you today and here.
Thank you, Victoria. Thanks for having me once again.
Yeah. So I believe today we have like really interesting and pretty technical topic to cover. And let's start at the core of it about the decision making. Running carrier operations involves like thousands of choices every day, and AI dashboards promise to make those decisions smarter, faster, more consistent. And that is why how do AI analytics platforms actually improve decision making in the carrier operations?
Well, Victoria, in many different ways. I mean, like you started talking about the thousands, millions that decisions that, and for like data units that come in every day. And of course, it's very difficult to make sense of this on a purely human-based, manual way. And that's effectively where AI comes into play, because on the one side, you have, through data integration and analysis, you have a system that is basically taking care of the heavy lift. So, of course, that is something that enables carriers to make decisions that are really data-based rather than intuition-based, and that's a very important element. But also, the fact that with this amount of data, it's not just about taking the best decision in this very moment, but it's also taking the best decision, predicting what's likely to happen. And of course, AI is a big power with that, because AI can read signals that are, again, very difficult to read in more traditional ways. So, when it comes to, by example, potential disruptions, then you have situations where clearly AI can give you a bit of like scenario modeling and anticipation of what's likely to happen, allowing you to make more informed decisions over, by example, as a carrier, which route to take, how to best optimize your fuel consumption, okay, or how to best optimize your fleet and your staff of drivers, and so on and so forth. So there is, again, an element of like real-time decision making, and another element of predictive advanced scenario planning, scenario modeling. Of course, that goes hand in hand with the very concept of digital twin, but I suppose it's out of today's scope, out of today's conversation. And the bottom line is that on the one side, as mentioned, you have like more informed decisions, so more accurate decision. But also, I think another very important element is that on the other side, you have like an increased speed in decision making. So decision making becomes more accelerated, becomes faster, and becomes more efficient, less time consuming, also for resources involved. So there are a number of gains that are possible out there, and that substantially have a big potential to improve carrier operations.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. That's a really sounds really powerful, and I love how you frame it. So the decisions could be done like really faster. They could be like really better one's decision, and it's like really important. Then we have like this kind of high pressure environments. So that is where it's like really huge part where AI could support the carriers and their operations. So that's like really cool. And moving forward, it's one thing to talk the theory, but seeing like real impact is where it clicks for like lots of people, lots of folks in this area. And can you share an example where AI analytics platform led to significant operational improvements?
Yeah, I mean, from a career perspective, the one example that comes to mind is UPS. Obviously, everybody knows UPS, but maybe not everyone knows that UPS has actually implemented artificial intelligence. It's not the only one, by all means, but obviously that's one very relevant example, because when it comes to UPS, we can highlight at least three areas where they deployed artificial intelligence effectively. One is the so-called it's an AI powered system called delivery defense, and it's something that basically predicts delivery success.
Mhm.
So the likelihood of being successful with the delivery And therefore, when this likelihood of being successfully delivered, successful delivery means, the parcel is handed over to a customer. So basically there's a signed off proof of delivery and all is fine. But we know that's not always the case. So there are some situations where that's not possible. Maybe the customer is not home or, whatever. So the system is suggesting alternative drop-off locations. And this is something that has significantly reduced the amount of package theft, which is still a phenomenon that exists. So that's one element. The other element, it's something that obviously you start to see very, very commonly across many types of operations, is obviously for customer service. So like AI-based customer service bots, and that's becoming pretty much norm rather than the exception. And this has been working very well for UPS so far, because their response time was cut by around 50%. Because obviously, one of the very powerful elements of a customer service bot is that the triage is much more effective. So basically, even the sheer amount of emails and requests that come through is lower, and that basically is something that allows to respond more quickly, more effectively. And I mentioned three elements. So the third area where UPS successfully implemented AI is the so-called Orion system. And that's effectively an AI-based route optimization platform. Now we're talking about a system that manages over 66,000 drivers globally. It's a big number.
It's like even huge.
Yeah, it's huge. So as you can imagine, this is leading to very significant fuel savings and of course, improved delivery efficiency. But UPS is a big reality. It's a massive company, hundreds of thousands of employees globally. For my work with the World practice, I work a lot with small, medium-sized businesses, and I must say that I start to see implementations in those realities as well, where obviously the resources available to invest in the system are much lower. So as a result, the type of implementations that take place are a little bit more focused on specific aspects, specific problems, specific opportunities. So even those smaller players are starting to adopt this AI solution to optimize their operations. But sometimes they really start focusing on very specific, very unique challenges, rather than going for more holistic approach, which of course requires a greater amount of resources. Not everybody can obviously afford to invest into those massive scale implementations.
Yeah, I completely understand it. And I say that this like really impressive regarding the UPS case. And I can say that it could be like kind of like blueprint for other companies. And it's even great that some smaller companies, smaller carriers can also apply these tools, these ways how to optimize their processes. I understand that this is like specific use cases that they try to improve, but still this is something that they can add additional value to their business, or maybe answer the clients faster. And that is why it's all this better service, better experience for the clients, more orders, and more revenue for them. So that's like really important point as well. And of course, like adopting AI isn't all like really smooth approach, and smooth process, and especially for the companies with like older system or some limited resources. So that is why, what kind of challenges do carriers usually face then they are implementing the AI analytics platforms, and how they can overcome them?
Well, I mean, we hinted towards that so far, the fact that clearly those implementations sometimes require a substantial resources, calls for, the need for creating a very, very sound business case, which is not always easy, because you can't say with certainty how much you will return. Right now, we don't have sufficient data to calculate a, extremely accurate second decimal type of business case. So I think that's sort of like creativity in a positive way, of course, in like realizing and putting together a business case. It's important. Having that managerial vision to believe in this kind of implementation is also extremely important. But of course, aside from that, there are like technical challenges, because in order for you to implement a AI based platform, you need to feed that platform, right? So you need to have like strong, solid, consistent, and coherent data. And data quality and data integration is a problem. So it is a technical challenge that sometimes might slow down those kind of implementations. The other element is scalability. Okay, so there are sometimes infrastructure limitations. Sometimes there are legacy systems that are pretty outdated. It's not easy
Mhm.
to integrate, new AI-based systems, let alone scale up those systems later on down the line.
Yeah.
And then there is something that is a little bit more related to the system itself. I mean, we shouldn't really buy the myth of AI as this sort of like perfect system, perfect being. I mean, it is a proven fact that AI has got some, might actually suffer from biases. So there might be bias concerns around AI,
Mhm.
and the algorithms behind AI are often not very intelligible, not very clear, not very transparent. So this algorithmic transparency could also be an issue.
Mhm.
Um, there are also organizational challenges, of course. I mean, as I mentioned, the sometimes legacy systems were not designed for AI. They're still old. They were not designed. So the way they're integrated into the organizational matters makes it difficult to transition to a more powerful system that is capable of integrating with AI. So that is obviously a limitation. But when we talk about organization, of course, we talk about culture and cultural resistance, concerns, fear of job displacement. Of course, I mean, there's no need to hide. I mean, that's a big elephant in the room. The bottom line, we could say that there are change management complexities that need to be taken into account and need to be dealt with very, very attentively. And last but not least, there are human factors related to what we just mentioned, but also related to the fact that um, the sort of like education and expertise of the existing workforce might not necessarily be aligned to the new ways of working that are expected to come into place when AI
Mhm.
gets implemented. And that upskilling is something that is far from being obvious, because also within the same organization, the same stuff, you have people belonging to different generations with different mindsets. So the way they can upskill and basically start working in a completely different manner, their openness to do that could be very different. So it could be very stratified within the organization. So you might really find yourself dealing with employees who are ready to embrace these new ways of working, employees who are extremely resistant, and that is obviously a problematic area that needs to be taken into account. Again, part of the change management efforts that need to go into this.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. And actually, I can say that from the perspective of the challenges you like highlighted, I believe like the key ones that usually companies face, and I can say that also it's easy like to focus on the tech challenges, and mostly the companies they are focusing on them, but they usually forget about the human side, and that is why sometimes the new introduction of the new technologies in the company they like really face like certain struggles from the employee side, and that is why not all these kind of initiatives like have that necessary impact that the management was hoping to have. So that is why this is like another important point, that it's not only tech, but there is also a human side to it, and that is why like training, like transport communication, is also like something that they need to take into account.
In my opinion, and that's something that I really made mine and ours in the world practice as part of our ethos. I mean, when we talk about digitization, we need to escape a very common trap, and the trap is thinking about digitization is all about implementing a new system and changing the way of working. No,
Mhm.
I think that's basically wrong. I mean, thinking about digitization as you implement a system and people need to start working according to the new system is very often a recipe for disaster. Whereas actually, I believe that any digitization effort should be really built around people,
Yeah.
because behind those machines there are still people, moving the levers, pressing the buttons. Ultimately, the human effort, human impact might be going down to a certain extent, but still people there that need to be taken into account. So you want to have a digitization effort, a new system, a new way of working that is really robust enough to be built around the existing ways of working, transforming gradually the ways of working something more efficient without necessarily creating such a turmoil that it becomes really unmanageable.
Yeah, that's for sure. And I'm really happy that we highlighted this point, because this is something that the companies for sure need to take into account and implement in their processes as another step that they need to care of. Okay, and moving forward into another interesting topic, this is related to the sustainability. It's like pretty hot topic in every boardroom, especially like right now. And logistic plays like pretty massive role in that conversation as well. So that is why, Mirka, how do you think AI platforms contribute to this like sustainability in the carrier operations?
Totally something that is very much related and to an extent, I would say, driven by logistics and supply chain in general. I mean, if we could see supply chain as the like broader environment, including also manufacturing, then of course, I mean, that's where like the big CO2 emission share is coming from. So clearly, I mean, AI plays a role and could play a role. I mean, although it could be a little controversial, this topic, because AI itself requires a lot of energy to run. So AI engines are really like energy demanding, and that is something that on the other side also contributes to CO2 emissions. But again, that's something that needs to be computed into the overall equation. I would say, if we just look at how AI is capable of supporting this kind of like sustainability efforts. On the one side, we mentioned the route optimization. In the example we gave before about the Orion system by
Yeah,
UPS, of course, we're talking about a system that, through optimization, that has obviously an economic impact. It also helps to save a lot of fuel. So this economic impact is like fuel saving, but it's fuel saving means less CO2 emissions, greater sustainability.
yeah,
I think that's a very interesting example of how we should look at sustainability nowadays, no longer as a trade-off between economic operation or sustainable operation. I mean, the two things can really go together, and AI plays a major role in making sure that there is this sort of like convergence. Fleet management is something that goes hand in hand with that. Clearly, this is something that relates to preventive maintenance of the fleet. Preventive maintenance means that basically every single truck, every single van, every single vehicle is always working at its optimized efficiency, peak efficiency. And
yeah,
this obviously is something that reduces the environmental impact. But we shouldn't forget the other element of carriers. I mean, carriers not only run vehicles; they also run facilities. It could be transit hubs, could be cross dock operations, etc., etc. And clearly, AI also optimizes energy consumption in those facilities. So it helps also to integrate renewable energy sources into the existing facility. So that there's another benefit. And last but not least, I would say sustainable packaging is another thing to be taken into account, because clearly what AI could do is to optimize packaging design. So like instead of like shipping air, you're basically shipping into parcels and packages that are really optimized to their content. And even when it comes to truck loading and van loading, that's something that carriers have been doing for many years already through non-AI based systems. But still, I mean, AI offers that extra edge in making this even more effective.
Yeah, that's true. And actually, all the points that you highlighted, they're like pretty incredible how they help like to support this kind of sustainability, increase the sustainability for the carriers and for their operations. And it's really great that you highlighted not just the areas that could be improved through in terms of the vehicle side, but also the facilities management. So this is also another part that takes like pretty huge amount into the carbon emission and all the stuff. So that is why this kind of optimizations, it's really important to take into account as well. And that is why I see how like really great AI can just not improve their performance, but also help the carriers do better to our planet Yeah. So
Exactly.
that is why it's
Exactly.
really another important point. And moving forward to another topic that I wanted to cover today, it's about a little bit looking into the future. And I can say, like, currently AI dashboards already like do a lot, but what could be the next year for them in the future? For example, what advances AI analytics platforms do you think will affect the carrier's work most in the future?
Well, I think one important thing to mention is that I don't think today the AI capabilities are being exploited fully, not just because we are transitioning, but also because I think the potential of the system clashes a little bit with the computational capabilities that exist out there. Okay, so what I mean by that is that the moment we think about edge computing, even quantum computing, so basically way more powerful infrastructures than what we have today, clearly that is something that will help AI big time to go to leveraging its full potential. And also, think about reduced latency. Okay, so today
Mhm.
obviously there's a latency, as I mean, like the delay between the
Yeah,
the, the input and the output. So that latency will be reduced because with more powerful systems, that latency can be reduced, and this basically is something that will be particularly helpful for time-sensitive operation.
that's
So that's something that will definitely make a difference.
mhm.
Um, it goes without saying, the system will continue to evolve. There will be probably more sophisticated predictive capabilities that will further enhance operational efficiency. And this
Mhm.
goes hand in hand with the fact that there will be a greater integration with IoT devices. Like today, well, greater integration. I mean, IoT devices are still pretty much integrated, but I think we will see probably an increase in the amount of IoT devices, further increase. I mean, this happened over the last few years without us even realizing. But the amount of stuff, of common objects that are connected to the web,
Mhm.
has increased quite dramatically. So I think that thing will continue to go up, and that integrating with AI means that basically we will have more complete sets of data. The other thing to be taken into account is market specific. Okay, so without the shadow of doubt, there is an incredible amount of funds, an incredible amount of resources going into investments into AI systems. So the AI market is poised to grow.
Mhm. Yeah.
The predictions are talking about around 23 billion US dollars in the AI market by 2031. So in 6 years from now. Okay.
Yeah.
And that is something that, it could be very beneficial because that is something that will require innovation. Necessarily, there will be new innovation through AI models coming to the market because obviously investors will only want to pour their resources into very innovative
Mhm.
systems and solutions. So that's something that clearly will affect pretty much any area in the economy, and therefore it will also affect the carrier's work moving down the line. So I guess that those are effectively, things that will continue to shape how AI will integrate into the carrier's environment.
Yeah, yeah. So this is like actually interesting points what you highlighted, and I can see like the future looks like pretty sharp, and I can say like all this kind of more smarter predictions, deeper analytics, deeper integrations with all like the devices that could be used. And I believe in the future there could appear some new devices that will bring us like more real time insights that they may need for improvement of our performances. So that is why let's like really powerful combo I believe will be in the future
Yeah,
in the nearest future. Yeah. So thank you, Mirka, very much for sharing your insights today. So this was like really interesting conversation, and we covered like interesting point regarding what's like possible for then AI meets the carrier operations and how it improves these operations. So that is why thank you very much once again. And
you're
to
very
our
welcome.
listeners, Yeah. And to our listeners, if you found this episode really helpful, and make sure to subscribe and leave a quick review and share this video with someone who is navigating the digital transformation in the logistics. So until the next time, keep learning, keep moving forward, and keep delivering better results. Yeah. Thank you, guys.
Thank you very much, Victoria.